Hi, my name's Haley, and today we are going to go over a few different prompting techniques. The first technique we're going to talk about is called zero shot. This is where you get an output from AI in one attempt. So, for example, you want to write a prompt with three different components. You want to give your AI a role, to offer instructions for the task that you want it to perform, including goals and context, and specify your output. In this example, we're going to talk about I want to create a strong classroom community, but I've had some barriers in the past with kids acting too cool or too vulnerable to participate. With this prompt, I would first give the AI a role. I want it to act as an experienced teacher and classroom management expert, and giving it the context that I want to create an inclusive classroom for kids that are reluctant to participate. The second component will be to give it tasks and context. Specifically, I want it to design a set of beginning of the year activities, and then I'm also going to give the grade level because developmentally it changes depending on how old your kids are. So I'm going to say 8th grade level, and I want strategies for how I can create this foundation at the beginning of the year so that kids feel valued, connected, and an integral part of the community. Last but not least, I want to specify an output. Specifically, I'm going to ask for 10 activities. I'm asking for 10 because maybe I like some, maybe I don't like others, and that way I can pick a handful to then implement. I also am asking for activities that aren't overly done or seen as cringe by students. We love to make a name tag at the beginning of the year with fun facts about ourselves, but if the kids do that in every period, it gets overdone and I want something new and fresh. I'm also using it as a bite-sized bit of PD for myself by asking for a brief description of how each strategy is building this community. And with this, I'm going to click on the preset. I've already copied and pasted all of these together in one paragraph. And as you can see, this is what the AI output looks like. 2 truths and a wish. I don't love that one, but I love this classroom quilt. So now I have some strategies. The next prompt technique we'll talk about is one or few shot prompting. In this type of prompting, you're giving additional context by offering a few examples. So in this one-shot example, you can see that I'm asking for word problems and I give an example of a word problem. In few shot, I'm asking it to classify statements and then I give 3 examples. In this use case, the scenario is that I've noticed that my students often struggle with nuances of language and literature. It's a foundational knowledge gap that students come in with, but I want to head it off by creating a set of do-nows and use it as a way to spiral review around the topic. As you can see in this prompt, I again give the grade level. I give the context that I want some figurative language practice as a do-now. I also am specific that I want it to be fun, relatable, and accessible for multilingual learners. I then, this is what makes it different from the zero-shot prompting, is give the example. The sun is like a big yellow ball, and I want to ask students to explain how this simile helps them visualize the sun and enhance their understanding of the scene. Again, generating 10 because maybe I only want 5. You can see that I've copied and pasted that prompt here, and this is what the AI outputs. And now I have a spiral review ready to go. In our third technique, this is called chain of thought. When you are doing chain of thought, it can be done a couple of different ways, but essentially you're breaking down a complex task for the AI to complete in steps. This helps it give a more useful and accurate output. An example of this would be I want it to solve this word problem, and I'm going to give the 4 steps in the way I would like the AI to solve the problem. Another way to think about chain of thought is how most people use AI, where you're just chatting back and forth. In this example, we're talking about useful and informative IEPs. I first ask it to test its knowledge, and then once I agree, I give some anonymized context about the child I want to write an IEP for. I read its output, and then I decide I want a year-long IEP plan and to give me specific things like subject area, baseline assessments, learning goals, specific strategies, and you can see the AI's output here. So last but not least, we want to test and evaluate the effectiveness of our prompts. You can do this with 3 different strategies. The first being accuracy, the second being relevance, and the third being usefulness. If we are looking for accurate outputs, we can cross-reference reliable sources. We can ask AI to give citations and URL links that we then click on and explore to ensure that it is correct. We want to also use our own brains, human in, human out, to see any gaps in the logic. For relevance, we have to be clear with our prompting. If we're not getting an output that we want, we need to rephrase our question to be more targeted. And usefulness, this is where you make it personalized. Do you prefer tables, bulleted lists? You can ask for any different form of output you prefer. You always need to make sure you're giving the AI a role and providing context. The more specific you are, the better your output will be. And you can also ask the AI to give you a summary of its response. One of my favorite tips is TLDR. When you type in the prompt TLDR, it means too long, didn't read. And then the AI will summarize everything it said for you in a quick sentence or paragraph. You can also ask it to translate its response into practical instructional strategies as a bite-sized bit of PD. With that, thank you so much for watching.